To think that I will be done with my tennis journey in less than 8 months is pretty crazy, given that I had a racket in my hand when I was 3 years old. I started out at the park taking lessons with my friends and a coach, but I didn't take it seriously until I went to a tennis academy at the age of 13. I started to train with Greg Alexander, who had trained multiple players to reach their potential and play at a high level of college tennis and some even professional, including his own 2 daughters who were both top 10 in the country. But he told me to be able to work with him, I had to give up the other sports I was playing at the time. So I gave up soccer and volleyball so I could only focus on tennis. Once I gave up these sports, he sat my mom, my dad, and I down at our club and told me that I was the 15th out of 16th ranked player that he coached at the time, but I had the potential to be the best. But that would take a lot of dedication and commitment. He told me that I needed to play over 100 tournament matches a year, have a 2-to-1 win-to-loss ratio, and I needed to be training 25 hours a week on the court. I made this commitment at the beginning of 7th grade, not knowing what I had gotten myself into, but it definitely paid off in the end. That was when my tennis journey really started, but fast forward 4 years to when college recruitment began. The NCAA rule is that college coaches are allowed to contact you first starting September 1st of your junior year, so the beginning of my junior year was very exciting because of this. The first time I visited Wake was the week before my junior year. I was in Winston-Salem for a national doubles tournament, and my friend who I was here with set up a visit for her, and she invited me to come along to meet the Wake Forest coach and see the facilities. I remember not really wanting to go because I was nervous to talk to him, and I didn't think Wake was the place for me because of the things I had heard. I heard it was really work-forced and you would spend every day in the library, and I didn't know if I would be able to do it academically. However, on my visit, the coach convinced us that we would definitely survive academically with the help of tutors and their academic advisors, so it definitely helped knowing that. However, I did not have the ranking of the players they wanted at the time, so I took a lot of the things he said with me and worked on my game to improve my ranking to see where that could take me. This was still very early in the recruiting process, and I didn't think too much about Wake because I still wanted to explore my other options, and I also thought that Vanderbilt was my dream school, so I was waiting for that visit. At the time, I was talking to TCU, Davidson, Texas, and Vanderbilt. After I visited Vanderbilt, I went back to Wake Forest, Davidson, and Texas. I immediately knew Texas wasn't the place for me because of the size of the school, and being from Dallas, I knew I wanted to get out of Texas. By the time it got around to Christmas time, I pretty much knew I wanted Wake. I had visited Wake Forest on an unofficial visit in November, and I remember knowing that it was the place for me. I went on a tour with the coach, I went to dinner with the team, I watched practice, and I just remember it being one of the best times. Then it got to Winter Nationals again, and I had not told Wake that they were my number one choice yet because I wanted to keep my options open. I ended up doing pretty well in the tournament, and multiple coaches watched me, so I was waiting for the next semester in order to narrow down my options. I visited again in February of my junior year with one of my brothers and my parents. We visited Wake, Duke, Georgia, and Furman all in one weekend, and this made me know 110% that I wanted Wake. However, they didn't want me just yet. They were waiting on a decision from a girl older than me because her deal with Princeton had fallen through, and I knew that they had only one more spot, and they had already offered her, so it was hers if she wanted it. From then on, it was just a waiting game until I got an answer. Joanna had to give an answer by the middle of March, so I had a month to wonder if I was going to be offered or not. Then, in late March, I'm sitting in my forensics high school class and get an email from Coach saying that Joanna had committed and there were no more scholarships. I remember walking out of class and I started crying. I called my mom and forwarded her the email. She told me to take a deep breath and explained to me that the door wasn't fully shut because we were financially able to afford it. And the amount of time and dedication I'd spent on the court, I wanted a full scholarship because I knew I deserved it. I was 34 in my class at the time, and if you were top 50, you pretty much didn't go to college non-scholarship, except for extremely rare cases. After I got off the phone with my mom, she emailed Jeffrey and explained that if we were able to pay tuition, would I be able to have a non-scholarship roster spot. He called her within 0.4 seconds of reading the email and said done. By the end of that school day, I was a Demon Deacon. He texted me asking for me to call him after school so that we could talk about our agreement and make it official. To this day, March 20th, 2015 was one of the best days of my life. It was definitely hard at first because I knew I deserved a scholarship to a D1 program. Maybe not Wake Forest, but I had an offer from TCU that I could have taken, but I knew I would be happiest here. And I also knew in the back of my head that my coach didn't understand going to a school non-scholarship after the amount of hours I had put in. But in the end, it was my decision, and that decision has definitely grown on him after the experience I've had here. Then, in December of my freshman year at Wake, all of my hard work seemed to have paid off. I was home for Christmas break, and I knew that year only 7 out of 8 scholarship spots were filled, but I hadn't asked about them. I figured if he thought I deserved it, he would give it to me. He called me while I was home and offered me a full scholarship for that school year. I remember calling my mom and dad, and they both were almost in tears because they were so happy for me, because they knew how much that meant to me and how hard I have worked. My experience at Wake has been everything I could have asked for in a college tennis experience. I've made some of my best friends that are also my teammates, and I've made many memories on and off the court that I will cherish forever. This journey has been extremely rewarding and has taught me many life lessons, yet challenging at the same time. There are many times when I question what I am doing or why I still play the sport when my alarm goes off at 5:30 a.m., but the good days definitely outweigh the bad. Tennis has played a huge role in my life, and it will definitely be weird when I hang up the rackets at the end of this year, but I will take everything I've learned into the next chapter of my life.